Okay, g'day guys, Andrew Dwight here. Just going to do a quick review on the new Sketchup 17. Let's have a look. Just going to open it up here, and we have a nice new little screen here with some pretty cool little images, and you can click through that screen and see lots of different things. But let's just jump straight into it. If you don't like to see this screen and you're a pro user, you can just turn this one off and it won't show up next time. Okay, just give it a second. SketchUp opens a lot faster now. They've made some big improvements with performance. Okay, so I've got a plugin installed there, which is Plusspec, and that's more for architectural design and estimating and so on. However, let's talk about SketchUp. Okay, the very first thing you'll notice, I've gone and added a few of my own toolbars, and the majority of people that start with SketchUp usually always start with a rectangle. And as you can see, we've got something a little bit different going on here. The rectangle is it's got its own little box now. Now, I can simply just draw a rectangle, and if I went from the center of a line, I now have the opportunity to choose different locations without clicking any buttons, inference buttons. Okay, but if I push my up arrow key, you notice it's always on the two planes. However, if I choose my right arrow key on the red axis, and if I choose my left arrow key on the green axis, kind of handy. Okay, if I'm using the second rectangle tool here, rotated rectangle, it's exactly the same as it was in SketchUp 16. Okay, so whatever you're going to do there. So the big difference there is the rectangle tool. You can now toggle the location of your rectangles. Probably the first thing I noticed when I opened it up. There are, however, a few other goodies, and one in particular is the quality of the graphics, the lines and so on. And you might find that by default now SketchUp will figure out what type of graphics card you have inside of your computer, and it will optimize to what it thinks is the best tool to do. So if I went to Preferences and OpenGL, we now have the opportunity to look at our graphics details, which we had there before, but we can also change the size. It says that my OpenGL setting is not compatible with the graphics card. However, I did upgrade it from 2 to 4, and there's a substantial noticeable difference in the quality of the line work inside of SketchUp, especially when you add materials. The next main thing that I have noticed would also be the extension manager. Window extension manager. You now don't have to go through preferences to find it. Now inside of here you can enable or disable extensions or install new extensions, and you have the opportunity to manage or uninstall. I wouldn't be too concerned at this time that you'll notice that some extensions, and I don't have one installed here, oh yeah, here we go, unsigned. At the moment SketchUp 17 is new, and that'll all change. So you can uninstall and update extensions very quickly. Another thing that you might like to know, especially if you're colorblind, is that SketchUp has now in their preferences, so if we went to Window, Preferences and Accessibility, we can now change the colors to suit of your axes to suit those with, I guess you'd call it impaired vision. And that's a big thing for a lot of the community, no doubt, and it'll help you out a lot. I'm not going to mess with that because I'm not colorblind. Okay, there's another thing which is really cool, especially for layout and SketchUp Pro users, and that is a thing called persistent IDs. Now I'm going to get into that a little bit later, and I'll jump into layout and so on, but you'll notice some cool things where our dimensions are now linked. So if I had put this into layout in a 2D drawing and I moved it, the dimension inside of layout will also be linked. Now I'm not talking about dimensioning inside of SketchUp, I'm talking about dimensioning inside of layout, so we'll get to that one a little bit later. Let's go through a couple of the basic changes. Okay, another big improvement that I think the SketchUp made is the ability to save your components even if you're not an administrator. I'm going to make this a component. I'm just going to call it test and go save. What you would have found in previous versions of SketchUp, when you went to actually save this component in your defaults, here it is, here's test, it was an issue because you couldn't go and save it into a folder for later use. Okay, now you can simply go save as, and you'll notice that now the default location is roaming SketchUp, SketchUp 17, SketchUp components. Now I've got folders inside of here which I've saved default wall types from Plusspec. However, you can create your own folder or new folder, and you can save it in here, and you can BIM it if you're using Plusspec, and you can call it whatever you want to do and go save. Now next time I go and open SketchUp, and I'll go and open another version now, I have those models saved there for me, and it's just a handy way to have your own components to suit your own workflow. Okay, let's get rid of that there. We're going to go up to default tray. Now if you don't see the default tray up there, and it's been here for a little while, it's been in SketchUp 16, Windows, default tray, show tray. Okay, and you can also, this is a SketchUp 16 as well, you can go and add other things. I don't recommend drawing with outliner on, only use outliner when you actually need to do it. Okay, so they're the default things that are set inside of here, and you can put fog in there, or soften edges, or instructor, and so on. So if you're a noob, I would definitely say instructor is a good thing to do, because as you use a tool, and this is obviously in all versions of SketchUp, I haven't got the default tray open, you'll notice it'll tell you how to use the rectangle tool. It'll tell you how to use a lot of these cool new things as well. Okay, I usually pin my default tray here, so if I click pin, it will stay there all the time. However, if I don't want it to bother me, I just put it there and then I hover over it, and up it comes again. Okay, as before, I mentioned that your components, so we're just going to get rid of our instructor here, and we've got components. Okay, I can just go inside of my drop down here, and I can find things that I've created. So you notice that I had Plusspec default walls, but if I went to the new folder, I could see what's inside there. I'm going to go to Plusspec default wall, and I just put one wall in here earlier on. I'm going to put in this wall here. Now this is a parametric wall, and this is not what SketchUp does do, but it's very handy to have that functionality. So I'm just going to explode the wall because it was a component. I can now use this wall, and I can split it up, and really good work for the guys from SketchUp to make Plusspec work so much quicker. We work together on a couple of things there. Okay, and you'll see that we can now start to generate walls when we're using Plusspec in conjunction without having to go to any dialogues and write in the type of walls we want to do. Okay, so I'm just going to undo that and get rid of that. Control Z is undo in case you didn't know. Okay, for Mac users, they also have updated the latest version of SketchUp to work with the new version of Mac. So if you're using a Mac and you want to install 17, you will need to upgrade it to the latest version, which is Sierra. Okay, but you'll enjoy the differences, and when you look at SketchUp on a screen, it is a really nice render output. Trimble Connect extension, probably one of my favorite improvements that they've done here. I'm actually going to go Control Y here, and I now need to save my model, so I can go File and Save As. We all would probably know that. Give it a name, test, and save. I can now use, inside of my toolbars, we have this tool here, which is Trimble Connect. If you want to know how to get the rest of these toolbars on here, this has been available in SketchUp for a while. Go to Toolbars, go through and select the tools that you want. These are the ones I use every day, and I used to just use the large tool set. It's better than going putting construction drawing and so on. However, I'll leave that to you. You can go and you can either pause this video and see what I've put in there, or you can have a bit of a play with it yourself. It's pretty easy to use, so you can simply turn them on and off. So you'll notice up here that my section tool turns on and off, and save your model once you've done that, and you'll save your locations. However, getting back to Trimble Connect, I have it clicked here, just Trimble Connect, and there's some real advantages with this here, because we can start to collaborate and add notes to a SketchUp model, which is an exciting feature that I think is going to help the industry collaborate more on SketchUp models. Okay, so let's have a look what we've got. We've got open model from Trimble Connect, so I can actually go and grab a model that I have previously saved in there, and I quickly added something just before this tutorial so I can show you, and I can go inside of here and see I have a test and I have a reference model that I put in there before, and it's downloading. What's going to happen? Okay, what happened to my original model? Well, it actually opened a new file, so if you can't see my screen down the bottom here, but essentially we opened up a new file. We can add notes to these models. Okay. Right, to-dos. This is really handy, guys, and I think it's going to be a big help for the industry. And add a new note. We can capture the view, the name of the item that needs to be done. I was going to say tests Andrew. Description of what it is you want to allocate this to a person. A bit of gibberish. A date, very handy. I need it to be done by tomorrow. And the priority, critical, high, so on. Let's say critical. Status, it's in progress, or whatever needs to be done. Okay. I can also assign it to a person. And I can go and create my note. I can also link my model. So I could link this model to another model. Okay. Here is my first note. If I chose to link my model, the model has no reference models. So essentially I would need to add a reference model, and to do that I would need to go in and choose another model. Update all references. I'm going to say yes. Okay, and essentially what we're doing is we're updating notes. I haven't spent a great deal of time on this, but I think there's some really good things to be done here as far as collaboration goes with models. So, you know, if you're a designer and you want to collaborate with your builder, or you want to collaborate with your client, or collaborate with all three people, I think there's some fantastic opportunities to be had in this tool. And I give that one a big congratulations to the Sketchup and Trimble team. There are also various stability fixes and crashes and performance. I noticed that the performance is a lot faster. So, you know, you'll notice those as you start to go through them. Okay, so before I mentioned a thing called persistent ID. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly put this into layout. The Taj Mahal it is not, and I'm just going to quickly do a couple of dimensions here just so we can see sort of what happens. Now, you don't dimension here if you're going to dimension in SketchUp, however, I'm just going to do it to show you what it means. Essentially, if I move this in SketchUp, like this, I can now, I should have actually done it inside the component, guys, so scrap that one. This here isn't a component, so if I go and do a dimension here, and here, and I push and pull this, my dimension is changing, it's interactive. Now, imagine being able to do that in layout. I'm going to leave them the way that they are. I'm going to go File, Save, then File, Send to Layout. Give it a second. Okay, my layout window has opened, and I'm going to go and choose a paper size. And you'll notice that I didn't set scenes up in there before. However, what I'm talking about at the moment is the dimensions and how I can get them to update. So if I went and dimensioned in here, now I haven't tried this before on orthogonal view. Okay, and it's probably not exactly what I was after there. What I'm going to do, I'm actually going to go inside of the model, inside of layout, so I can dimension this a little bit easier, and I should probably go top view, however. Okay, and now if I try to dimension inside of here, okay, I have 4 meters. If I go back to my SketchUp model, and I push and pull this, it'd be interesting to see what happens. I probably should have dimensioned over here as well. Regardless, let's see what happens. Okay, I'm going to go back to layout, and I'm going to go right click, update model reference, and I've made a liar out of myself. have a double check what happened there. I did it inside of a component. You can see that I've updated here. However, it didn't update inside of there. You know what I probably didn't do is save my model. Go back to here. Right click. Okay. See that? And that's the cool thing about it. My measurement has now updated, even though I did it outside of a component. So it's a really handy thing to do. Now, obviously, we would want to create scenes and so on. Let's have a quick look at how that looks with some scenes. I'm going to cheat here. I'm going to create all of my scenes in one go. So I've got an elevation here. Let's have a look at say a ground floor plan. Very rough. Okay. Now when I go, and if I save my model now, so Control S, if I go to Layout, right click, Update Model Reference. Okay, I can now go into my scenes, and I can go to my ground floor view. Ground floor. Okay, set my scale if I choose. Sorry about the drawing, guys. It's a quick one. 1 to 100. Okay, and I can go in dimension in here. 4.7 meters. And if I went back to my SketchUp drawing and move this over here and move this one here, Control S, you'll notice in layout that I now have an updated dimension sizes and lines. That's a huge saving. Big clap from me there. Very well done. There's also some other cool things in layout, and I'm going to make this my last one. And essentially we have a table tool. We can put in columns and sizes of columns, and we can now import CSV or TSV or XLS spreadsheet files into layout, which is great if you wanted to add in, you know, well, anything you can use a table for. Maybe you want to use a window schedule, or something like that. You can merge cells. There's a whole heap of cool things, and it's well worth playing around with. There's actually one other thing that I do want to mention, which is a big time saver as well. I'm just going to move this file up to here and delete this dimension line. Now, we've also been working on a help tool with this, so we've come up with a unique solution that will help you make your leader lines work faster. So yeah, if you want to go down over to plusspec.com and check that out. We'll have it up there by the time you're watching this video, so our leader lines can now be done without having to have leader lines going through other leader lines. But disconnection of measurements. So, for instance, I'm going to grab this one here. I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to just quickly and roughly here change. Whenever you're doing that, I'm going to undo it, Control Z, show you something here. If I let go of Control first, you'll notice what happened there. It got rid of my original. However, if I let go of my mouse first, I duplicated the drawing. I can now go to Scenes, Elevation 1, and I now have my elevation here. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to draw in a line. I'm going to delete it inside of SketchUp. So let's go over to here, and I'm going to draw a line in here, and I'm going to dimension it. Okay, I'm going to save my model, Control S, go back to layout, and I need to update my model. You notice that that line that I drew in there before is still there. If I dimension this line now, go over here, and if I went back to the SketchUp model and I actually deleted this line, delete, Control Save, go back to layout, I'm going to update my model reference. Now my dimension went red, which is really handy. You can make a mistake, or you didn't quite reference the right line. The dimension's still staying there. However, it's just highlighting the fact that that can be altered, which is a big time saving thing, and it saves a lot of hassles on jobs. You can override this, but we'll get into that in another tutorial. I hope it helps out, guys. If you want to check out more, go to sketchup.com and download SketchUp 17 Pro. I'm pretty sure there's still a 30-day trial there if you haven't, if you're still using Make. However, I believe that SketchUp Pro is now at the point where you can use this for everything from design through to construction and completion when you use it in combination with Plusspec. Alright guys, I look forward to your feedback.